talking about or indicating the importance of thinking for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as trainers, it's not fashionable to talk about being able to have a powers of observation, powers of evaluation. And I sort of think back to when I was a kid and the sort of the skills that I learned, which helps me cope with modern technology. It was the skills I learned earlier, and they weren't even new technology, it was adaptability.
Yes.
To be able to, you know, your mental arithmetic, for example, all of that was sort of training in your mind for being able to, using your mind to be adaptable.
Well, I think that this actually, that technology actually does enable that. And I think it's our role to help people learn how to use it so that you know, people have to be accountable for their own learning. People are responsible for their own learning. I can't make you learn anything. I can stand up here, I can talk, I can give you activities, I can do whatever I like. I cannot possibly make you learn. Only you can learn if you want to. So the onus or the responsibility for learning resides with the individual. And our role as educators is to create conditions in which that learning can occur. You know, and then I think within that, you know, you use technology, and that people do have to be adaptable because they really do need to cope with this rate of change. So yeah, I think maybe we're looking back into that now, and I think as we work through the morning, you'll see evidence of that. I hope. See what you think at the end of the session.
If I could just give one example, I think a lot of examples where you're talking to someone and you mention something and they don't know what that is. So they pull out their smartphone and they look up, you know, Wikipedia or whatever.
Is that a bad thing?
And no, it is bad because they're relying on the answer they get from that rather than thinking for themselves. Now, because I've done editing on Wikipedia, I know it's not the ultimate truth. No. And it's censorship on Wikipedia. So people, without thinking, just, you know, come back with an answer. And I think the old days where you had to actually explore the answer and actually think about, well, is this true? Can I trust the source? Whatever. It seems to have sort of disappeared. People just instantly grabbing information without, you know, thinking through.
Well, I think that, you know, so we have greater access. You know, I mean, if you used to have to go to the library. If you were doing a course of study and you needed to know something, you had to go to the library. You had to find a book. You had to read a couple of different books. You had to find. So, but I think it's an advantage. When I was actually doing my adult education degree, I did an independent subject, and I wanted to see if I could do all my research on Twitter and Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You know, did I have to go anywhere else to find information? And the information that I found was extraordinary. And the reason it was extraordinary was because I was able to connect directly with experts. So I was able to find experts who really did have that knowledge, ask them questions, get links from them to reliable resources, and then use those for research. So from my perspective, I think the fact that we can get to find out who don't understand something is an advantage. That's my opinion. That's correct. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, though, because it's just because there's more information out there, it is out there.
Yeah.
But to think that you have direct access to it, it's not quite as simple as that. There are layers of filters between you and that information, and like censorship, and actually you can subtly control how people think and what they're doing by the information you're exposing to. So you think it's, you know, I've got access to all of this, but there's stuff that's served up to you. So there was that experiment that Facebook did where they showed certain posts to make people more depressed. And then we're actually manipulating people through that information.
How is that different to how it was before?
I completely agree with that. I think, you know what I think the difference is? I think the difference is that with machine learning and that kind of stuff, you have much more access to what people are doing, and you learn how to control people in a far more effective way. So in the olden days, it was like, oh, the honey, evil honey horns, whatever, which is kind of a caricature, not taken seriously. However, when you can actually get into somebody's mind and you understand how they behave and what their habits are, it's much easier to actually control it.
So the role of the educator is?
To educate people about what's going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I would agree. It's still the filters though, because I was terrified. I'm going to primary teaching. I was terrified about technology and education and what on earth you do with that as an educator. So I went to the ICT Educators Conference this year, and a couple of things just completely blew my mind. So there was a group of 14-year-olds from school up the Central Coast who had actually designed and built a robotic arm that is controlled by a sensor that you put onto your head and it reads your brain waves. They designed that for stroke victims at 14 years.
Someone is nice.
Yes, come on in.
No, it's okay. Your lunch is in the kitchen.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway.
And the other thing that I saw was year one children who were using augmented reality to send invitations to adults and things like that. And so a huge part of what I learned is not just there's all this really cool stuff, but about a third to half of all the teaching around all the technology in schools is digital citizenship. It's how to actually use the technology, being aware of those kind of questions of how's your data being collected and who's putting it for what purpose and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just, I'm not going to finish this, but, you know, just on that, I remember one year at UCS, you know, I had a speaker in from Deloitte too, was sort of talking about, you know, that sort of thing. And, yeah, offensive. And after the talk, I said, because they were talking about the fact that they use Facebook and they use all of these different, they look at people's profiles. And I said, so think about what's in your Facebook page. What do you really want an employer to be looking at? And the colour kind of yeah.
I think also the whole information you have today, like in part of the world, you can create to teach people how to question everything.
Yes.
You can take nothing for granted.
No. Okay, that's a really nice contribution. That's very true. That is definitely a really key role for the educator, is to inform people about being thoughtful and analytic about the information that they're reviewing. Did you want to say something? No, I'm just saying. Okay, no problem. No, I noticed that you were talking to me before. Did you want? Are you okay there, or did you?
Yeah, no,
Okay, right, fine, no problem. Just checking. Okay, now the next activity is around jargon, and okay, so on your tables, there's a couple of sheets with some terms on them. So you can divide into two groups on your tables. I'm going to do the thing that you don't want to do. I'm going to ask you to use your smartphones. And identify what these things mean. So what do these terms mean? What are So give well, you can just talk to each other. That's the other thing.
We've got it live streaming. You're on. I got a bit excited when I realized it was going to work. That's why I wasn't taking to make sure it was going to be careful with the don't bump that. Exciting.
Just read it. I go, this kind of presentation. Yes.
Yeah, did you see that?
Are they here?
Yeah, it's all
Okay, great.
I suppose that's the whole piece. If you understand how something works, it gives you a better idea of how to use that tool.
Are you all right? Yeah. This is what I know. This is what one more minute and then we'll come together. Rather than just sort of teach people having a little primarily face-to-face. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go back together now as a large group. You all bring in the different terms, and what I'd like you to do now is share what you've discovered about those terms. So, last one to table, let's start.
Sure. Social learning was our first term. So a gentleman by the name of Albert Bandura postulated that learning is a cognitive process. So in a social context, it refers to observation or direct instruction, imitation or modeling, and encompasses attention, memory, and motivation.
Okay, so in the context of technology, so Bandura, nice reference, I have to say. But
First one.
yeah, well, he's the guy, he's the guy that did it. But I mean, that was a long time ago. So social learning is not something that is solely connected to technology. Social learning has always existed. What we're doing now is we're using technology to give a wide opportunities for social learning. Thank you. Okay.
And the second one we had was
Andragogy.
Yeah. And it was there at the back of my mind, so I knew it.
Yeah.
And it is the theory and practice of education of adults.
Yeah.
And so the word is a combination of andro, which is of men, and God, which is to lead. So basically that word is saying, with the education of adults, they will be men who are people, leaders. Yes, they're leaders. Yes, with education. Yes.
So thinking about andragogy, we're also thinking about adult learning principles. So fundamental adult learning principles, which is that adults like to learn by doing, they like to learn by exploring, they like to be in control of their own learning, all of these things. I mean, I have to say, I don't really differentiate stuff between the way children learn and the way adults learn.
Yeah.
I think children learn very similarly, but at the time that was written, there was thought to be a distinct difference in, children sort of more of that, the stage or the stage sort of, all known being at the front sort of in passing there. Great way of information speaks for the went to heads. Well, that's, that's a new thing debunked now. But anyway, thank you for that. Okay.
So we had branching activities, which basically provides the learner with choices and the ability to design a personalised learning experience. So they can select different branches and go off in completely different directions. And we also had asynchronous online learning, which is pre-recorded self-paced learning. So an example would be like a YouTube tutorial.
Asynchronous, okay.
Yeah, that's it.
I wasn't sure if it's asynchronous or asynchronous. Yeah.
Okay,
I
great.
wasn't sure whether you guys asynchronous or asynchronous. Yeah, pick up.
Sounds the same.
Yes. Well, what is one synchronous
Asynchronous.
together and asynchronous is
Opposite.
people are not together. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. So thank you for that. So let's just go back to what kind of confusing here. So the asynchronous part means that people are learning individually. They're learning separately. They're not together. It's not in real time. So it would be things like, discussion forums. It might be working collaboratively using a wiki. So you might be working on a document. You might work in different states or different offices. You might all be issues using this tool. So you're not together. It might also be, listening to a recording, something that's already happened, and then maybe having a discussion about that afterwards. Basically, they're not together. The branching activity is pick a path. People know pick a path, choose your own adventure. That's the kind of concept. So this is an example of an asynchronous e-learning activity where what you would have is you have people, you have a scenario, you give people a range of choices, they would choose, they're not prescribed, they would choose one of the options that you give them, and as a result of that choice, there would be a consequence. So when they review the consequence, they then get other choices to make, and as a consequence of that action. So you're taking people down the journey, and they'll be overlapping, and they'll be coming back to the beginning, and there'll be decisions that you can correct. So the idea is that you're emulating the real world as far as you possibly can in an independent online learning environment by providing them with opportunities to make decisions and deal with the consequences of those decisions. So that's sort of okay, who got to go next?
Can I go next? Just because I have a bit more to say.
Yeah, of course.
So we had storyboard and flip the classroom. Storyboarding is, as I understand it, and tell me if I'm wrong, It's when you have a series of images and ideas and you can play with them, sort of like our post-its when we do the training slide, as to what's going to happen when, and you can think about what that story arc is going to be in the context of eLearning. I've seen it used as what's going to happen when in a learning experience, and again, you can play with that. So that's what I understand it today, and I always picture Disney in my head, where they used to come up with their cartoons. Flipped Classroom, I first heard about through the TED Talk from Salman Khan, who came up with Khan Academy. Have you ever heard of that? Yeah, a few people in the room. So if you haven't seen that TED Talk, it's a really good one to go and watch. And the idea is that, again, as I understand it, that everything that can happen just online, that people can do on their own, all the information and discussion, things like that, happens online. And then when you get to the classroom, you do things that you couldn't do online. So all the face-to-face activities, all the working things out together, all of the asking people questions, that kind of stuff. So the idea is, instead of a teacher at the front of the room, giving people information that happens elsewhere, it flips the classroom around, so the classroom will become this open learning discussion space. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. With the storyboarding, yeah, that was a great explanation of the flipped classroom. The storyboarding, it's not that you don't have to be artistic. You don't have to draw pictures. You can just write words. So, if you were writing a story, so the storyboard is the process of documenting, the planning document for your e-learning experience that you're going to design. It's where you document your design. So you'd be doing things like saying, well, I'm going to start with a Wordle at the beginning. So I'm going to do an icebreaker, I'm going to have a Wordle, here's a link to the Wordle, and then this is what I'll do with it afterwards. And then I'm going to show the video, so there'll be another box and you say, okay, here's the link to the video, and I want it to be this big, and I want it to run at this speed, I want to do certain things. All of that gets documented. And then I'm going to do this activity, and how am I going to do this activity? What's it going to look like? So it's the documentation, it's the planning process, the design of the program. That's what the storyboard is for, so you write it down. And storyboards can be done. A lot of people use PowerPoint, and the reason that they use PowerPoint, particularly if they're designing modules, so those independent modules, is because the shape and the size of the PowerPoint slide is the same as how it will look on the screen. So it gives people a sense of how much room have I got, how many words can I have, will it be overcrowded, and it helps with that. Other people just use Word and just literally write it in Word because that's how their brains work and that's how they prefer to document the learning that they're designing. Okay, so we have a couple more on this table, I think.
Well, sorry, I think more last. Okay. We have open learning, and I think it's yeah. Okay. Open learning with a system of further education on a flexible part-time basis. So therefore, you'd be not in a classroom environment. You'd be able to do it online, or it's just a new way of learning, and you can tailor it to your needs or your time constraints and things like that. So we can open learning was. The other, which I'm not even going to attempt to say just now, the study of self-determined learning. It's an attempt to challenge some ideas in teaching and learning that still prevail in the teacher in centered learning. So it's more of a knowledge sharing versus a knowledge hoarding. And we feel that knowing how to learn will be a fundamental skill.
That's right. Yeah, learning how to learn.
Yes,
is a key role of the educator.
Very good.
So the open learning, the pedagogy goes with the open learning environment. So, and the other thing about the word open in the context of e-learning now is it often implies free as well, access to free stuff that you can work with. And that might be a course that's put on by Harvard. It might not just be a YouTube video, it could be something that's, very well put together, but it's openly accessible. I'm not going to, I know you've got something to say about that, so I'm not going to say any more about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've learned as we were researching it is that there's just so many different ways to learn that if you can't find something that suits your needs, then really not trying.
You really don't want to learn.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay, who wants to go next?
We've got two words here, pedagogy. Pedagogy.
Pedagogy.
Yeah, but-
Yep. The budget's about, yeah.
If I understand correctly, is learning from the peers.
Yes,
So putting people together
yes.
and learning from each other, which is pretty much I think what we're doing first of all.
Yeah.
Next one is situated learning, which again, if I understand correctly, is learning not just from a book or from theory, but by being in a situation. In such learning computers by sitting on a computer, learning music by in a classroom with an instrument in your hand, things like that.
Yeah, you're learning in context.
Okay.
So if I'm a plumber, I'm on the job and I'm putting pipes together and doing whatever plumbers do, I'm learning in a situated context. Coaching is an example, which I think you said you did in your role. Yeah, that's right. The pedagogy, yeah, that was, you are doing peer learning right now, you're all learning from each other. You can also do that online. You can connect with people online via various social networks to learn things. Okay, so it can happen online as well. Okay, thank you. And you have a couple more then?
One was scenario-based learning, so that was having interactive, real-life kind of situation that the group of people then could get involved in and actively problem solve and work through. And I was thinking at work, and the leadership and training, they do things like exercises, so I'll have a train that's broken down and has to be evacuated. So I'll have people from other agencies, like police, ambulance, I'll have the radio members involved, and everyone goes through it, like it's a real-life situation and then debrief afterwards.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the other one was webinars, so it's short for a free-based seminar.
Yes.
And that has interactive elements as well, where people can get on discussion boards and ask questions.
And people can talk. So it's actually live. So it's in real time. It's live. It should be interactive. It isn't always, but it's, theoretically they can be interactive. It's the closest thing to this that you get using technology. Is doing webinars. Webinars are great if people are geographically dispersed and you want to connect them regularly for the purpose of learning or indeed for the purpose of work as well. Yeah, that's great. And so now that was a fantastic scenario example. Yeah. And that scenario, so you could actually do that online. That's a perfect example of using the scenario and a branching activity together to get people to make decisions. Which service is in charge in any particular situation, those sorts of questions. Who should answer to who? You can have those sorts of things in there and have people make mistakes about what their role is in that context. And then you live with the consequences afterwards and have to try and correct them. So that was an example. Thank you. Okay, so we've got 2 tables left.
Synchronous online learning. Well, now we define it, but examples would be webinars, study seminars, video conferences. Where people can learn off each other and there is interaction as well.
Yeah, that's it, they're live,
How do you find that?
Well, that's you've done it, it's in real time, it's live, and it's people doing things together at the same time, Did you have another one there? Someone else that took that.
We have another one that's interesting enough. Authoring tools. Looked at Wikipedia, there's no such article called authoring tools. So I presume this is in the context of learning. So we made up our own definition.
Okay, great.
And it's a tool to create information for dissemination. An example would be the Wiki tool, which is used in Wikipedia, but also can be used by anyone. A simple word processor or software for video or graphics production.
So an authoring tool is used when you want to design self-paced independent learning. It looks like PowerPoint, but it's got interactivity built into it. And authoring, there are very specific authoring tools, so an example of an authoring tool. Sorry, I'm sorry about that. Captivate is one example of an authoring tool, and another sort of very popular one is Articulate Storyline. So there are particular pieces of software that people use to build e-learning experiences. So the relationship is usually, in that context, educator designs the learning experience, developer builds the module. There's usually, a whole bunch of people involved, but they're sort of 2 key roles. So the role of the educator doesn't involve necessarily, it can do, it doesn't have to involve the actual technical building. So to design an e-learning experience, you don't have to be it every time. But more importantly, you need to fundamentally understand what education is and how people learn. Yeah.
The first one was Captivate.
Captivate, which is an Adobe product, and the other one was Articulate Storyline. And people at the moment, the flag of the month is Articulate Storyline. People seem to like it, and they seem to find it easier and more intuitive than Captivate.
How's that used? Is that like an online interactive thing, or?
Yes, it would be used to build. So it's a piece of software that I would purchase and have on my computer that I would use to build a module. So I'm actually building something that I'm then going to upload and people will access. So
How will they access? Will I need that software?
no, they won't. No, so it's exported as well. It's either Flash or it's HTML5. You can export it as one or the other. It's basically if you make some sort of moving pictures that you can click and do things and make choices, and you can drag and drop to be asked questions. You can put assessments in there, quiz questions, these sorts of things. It's probably what most people think of when they think of it, is that kind of thing. Okay. What was the other one?
Personal learning, no, we didn't get that one.
Okay, that's okay. And connectivism, did you get to that one?
No.
I
Okay,
looked it up.
yeah.
I don't understand what it's saying.
Okay, all right. So connectivism. Okay, so we talked about social learning and we talked about open learning. Actually, just before we do that, we might go to the last table, so I don't want you to get to come back to that. Okay.
So ours were MOOC and Delivery. So MOOC is massive open online course. I think about it as like a platform for delivering online courses. So for example, I taught a subject last year in the study and we had a course website. So so where I deliver it, so we deliver the course say, but then students have to go and download the lecture notes online. So for example, at the end of every class, the lecturer will upload the solutions that you can rely on. So that would be blended learning, so there's a face-to-face, and we'll learn there's also an online.
Yeah.
So that's really, it's the simplest example I can give. So,
Thank you.
Sorry, is that the same as a flip classroom?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just a structured classroom model as well. Yeah. So the MOOC, okay, so here's an example of a MOOC. Okay, and so this also brings in the concepts of connectivism and a personal learning environment. Okay, so and I'll give you all the slides and all the links and everything that I'm talking about. I'll give them to Kathleen afterwards so you can have access to them. Okay, okay. So what it is it's the massive open online course. So course. It's open, which means that it's accessible to everyone and anyone who wants to do it. If you pay, you get the credential. If you don't pay, you don't get the credential. So if you're someone who's just interested, just going back to that Harvard example, you can go and do a Harvard course because I'm interested. I don't really want the credential. I've already done all of that. I just want to have this learning experience and gain some new knowledge to apply in whatever the context is. So that's the open aspect. So it's massive and it's open, it's online and it's a course. So that's the MOOC concept. So the MOOC concept draws on this idea of connectivism. So this is a relatively new theory, and connectivism talks about the idea of you constructing your own knowledge. So it comes back to that concept of a learner-centered, learners being responsible for their own gaining of knowledge. So the connectivism theory says, I'm responsible, I'm going to go and do this massive course. I'm going to seek out in this course people who have similar interests in this field to me. So I can't deal with 500 people, that's too many people. So I'm going to look around and I'm going to see who's on there, what their jobs are and how we interrelate. And I'm going to form a subgroup with that group. So I'm connecting with people. I might also connect with people outside of my course. I might go onto Twitter, I might go to Facebook, I might go down to the local library, but I'm going to go out and seek out, I'm going to find the people that I want to be connected with for the purposes of learning. So I'm finding people and I'm finding information. So it's not just about connecting with people, it's also about finding information. and sharing that information. So the idea is that you're going out, you're looking, you're aggregating, so you're bringing back all of the stuff that you find that's relevant to you, and you're compiling that somewhere. And then you're thinking about remixing. So I'm going to look at that and think, well, how can I use that in my context? I'm going to take that out of this context and move it into another context, and I'm going to apply what I'm learning. And then I'm going to share what I've done. So the
Sounds
context.
like Toastmasters.
Well, there you go. Okay, well, that's great. So that's a really sort of a relatively like 2005 learning theory, okay, that's come out, and it kind of underpins the concept of social learning. You know, it's come out of Bandura and built on Bandura, incorporating the things that we know about technology, or the use of technology. So what also sits with that is the concept of the personal learning environment. So it's that I myself as an individual will construct my own personal learning environment by making those connections with information for people. So those are kind of the core concepts that I wanted to cover. Are there any questions about any of that? Was it new? Was it new for most people? Yeah. That's good. All right. How are we doing for time? Let's stop and have a break, I think. Okay. So I know that Kathleen wants to do something during the break. So yeah.
Yes,
Is that okay?
that's fine.
Okay.
So I'll just explain.
You mean you've got to work for our food? The trainers by design members, I need to go out there very quickly and grab something and bring it back because we've got to have our business session. Those of you who are not members, feel free to enjoy the whole 25 minutes of the break. In the kitchen, there is milk on the bottom shelf of the fridge that's ours. There's cupcakes. I've already taken photos in case you're wondering. Biscuits and fruit. So feel free to enjoy. Otherwise, our business session will only be 15 minutes. So you can always grab something before we come back if you remember. Thank you.